Once upon a time, the Cro-Magnons were imagined in mythological terms as an almost godlike superhuman race, especially when compared to their European brethren, the Neanderthals. This depiction may have been a bit Eurocentric, but whatever happened to the Cro-Magnons? First, let's start with the Neanderthals, or Neanderthals, depending on your school of thought on the pronunciation. In 1856, a fossilized skeleton was found while excavating cave sediments from the Kleine Feldhofer Cave in Germany's Neander Valley. The 60-foot-long tall cave was discovered while quarrying limestone in the valley, a deep, narrow gorge where the Düssel River flows, and meets the Rhine 20 miles to the east in Düsseldorf. The cave was small, about 15 feet wide, 6 feet deep, with 3 feet of mud inside. It was just high enough to admit a man. The chamber's deposits were removed by 2 workers who found the bones, but did not recognize them as human because the quarrymen believed the cave sediments to be a contaminant. They then dumped the contents of the cave on the quarry floor, where a few weeks later, someone removed the bones and brought them to the attention of a local teacher. The skull cap and a few limb bones were the only larger components of what had likely been a full burial by that point. The schoolteacher identified them as being human, and started a chain of events that resulted in the designation of a brand new yet prehistoric human species, Homo neanderthalensis. William King's assertion that we had not always been the only members of our genus changed the course of human history forever in 1863. In Newcastle-upon Tyne, the British Association for the Advancement of Science held its 33rd annual meeting. William King, an Irish professor of geology and mineralogy, travelled from Galway to present on what he thought to be a novel and ancient species of hominin, that he called Homo neanderthalensis. His declaration, which was first covered in the Anthropological Review in 1863, would forever alter our understanding of human evolution. These opinions were shared by German anthropologist Schaffhausen, who noted that the form of the skull was natural and not a deformed modern specimen. It belonged to a race anterior to the time of the Celts and the Germans and probably represented one of the wild races of northwestern Europe. It was contemporaneous with the last of the Ice Age mammals, though he admitted that there was no direct evidence to support such an association. Together, they came to the conclusion, 2 years before Darwin's Origin of Species was published, all the controversy over the extent of human antiquity was finally resolved, that the bones belonged to an ancient and previously unrecognized form of human. But this claim was not entirely unheard of. For decades, the issue of human variation had captivated scientists. The Neanderthal cast was also scrutinized by Thomas Huxley, who confirmed its peculiarities. Huxley therefore saw no reason to view the Neander Valley specimen as a missing link between humans and apes, instead interpreting it as the extreme end of variation within modern races. For Huxley, brain size was the key characteristic. The Neanderthal specimen, which he believed to be of great, though uncertain, antiquity, would be much younger than the common ancestor, he claimed. However, one interesting thing about the Cro-Magnons is this: they apparently did not interbreed with the Neanderthals, as modern humans did in other regions. Regarding this, we will find out all the mysteries and questions surrounding the Cro-Magnon soon. According to recent research, Neanderthals made tools, buried their dead, possibly treated the sick, and even had conversations. But why did they vanish if they were so intelligent? Near the end of their evolutionary history, modern humans followed the Neanderthals into what is now southern Spain, and remote regions of Europe. But any meeting was probably going to be hostile. In actuality, the early modern humans of Europe were superior warriors, and swiftly exterminated the Neanderthal men. Modern humans have a strong sense of competition, are excellent at killing with projectile weapons from a distance, and probably cooperated better in large groups, giving them an advantage on the battlefield. We know from genetics that modern humans and Neanderthals met, even though there isn't any archaeological evidence of cohabitation. Likewise, even though there's not any conclusive archaeological evidence, we can imagine that not all encounters between these two armed groups would have been friendly. On every continent there have been discoveries of massacres that occurred well before the invention of agriculture or large organized societies, so there's no reason to think that different species of humans, vastly different languages and cultures would have gotten along any better. Ultimately, just as today, competition for land and resources drives conflicts. In point of fact, conflicts between Native Americans and Europeans often took the form of ambushes, raids and massacres, and yet we refer to those battles as the Indian Wars. Likewise, we can refer to the conflict between early Europeans and Neanderthals as the Neanderthal Wars, for lack of a better word. In the end, all human species but one perished, including the handy, big-brained, strong, and persistent Neanderthals. We shouldn't think less of Neanderthals just because they went extinct, because there have been many attempts at being human before us, and none of them succeeded. Neanderthals possessed many of the qualities we associate with success, which should cause us to reconsider our place in the evolutionary process. Nonetheless, Neanderthal tool-making techniques for hunting and survival stagnated until the last 2,000 to 3,000 years of their existence, when they coexisted in Europe with a particular sect of modern humans once known as Cro-Magnons, and now called early European modern humans. Meanwhile, the earliest Homo sapiens evolved in Africa around 350,000 years ago, but many have long wondered why our species didn't seem to do anything unusual during the first 250,000 years. The cause of the abrupt change in behavior in the early modern humans is unknown, but the most likely explanation for the success of modern humans is a sudden biological change. A fortuitous mutation may have promoted the fully modern brain. Unfortunately, anthropology only demonstrates the radical nature and consequences of the dawn of human culture. Fossilized skulls reveal little about the brain underneath, but a gene mutation may have changed important neural processes such as speech and language. In fact, a recent scientific study has confirmed the neural mutation hypothesis to be correct, making it the most cost-effective explanation of why anatomy and human behavior drifted apart. The abrupt emergence of human culture over a stunningly short period of time continues to be one of the great mysteries of human evolution. When the rewired modern humans arrived in Europe, they probably outsmarted the local Neanderthals, driving them to extinction by 40,000 years ago, and leaving their indelible cultural mark on the land. An early European modern human hunter or warrior would throw their spear at an incredible range and speed, greatly increasing their killing power and range. The spear thrower effectively served as an extension of a man's arm, increasing a man's ability to throw a spear by almost twofold. With this weapon, he could quickly impale and kill an animal or another man, while they were both standing up to 150 yards away. It was made of a spear that was attached to a long, hooked rod that was between 1 and 2 feet in length. The spear throwers were ornately decorated with fine carvings, etchings, drawings, and paintings of animals like horses, deer, bison, birds, and fish, just like all of their other tools. The materials used to make these tools and weapons included things like reindeer antlers. These people also understood that a spear with barbs on it, similar to a harpoon, would cause much more harm than one with a smooth point. Animals were frequently not immediately killed by barbs, and sometimes a mortally wounded animal would run for long distances before collapsing and dying. Therefore, to facilitate faster blood flow from the wound and hasten death, early European modern humans carved blood grooves alongside the spearheads of bone. Additionally, it appears that the first bows and arrows were widely used around 50,000 years ago, and the arrows appear to have been feathered to stabilize their flight. The invention of the bow allowed hunters to become completely invisible, because even if they missed their first shot, the target animal would not even be aware of their presence, as long as they stayed downwind and out of sight. Now the hunter could shoot repeatedly. Unlike Neanderthals and those who came before them, the early European modern humans were the best hunters of their time, and could swiftly dispatch antelopes, bison, wild horses, reindeer, mammoths, and even lions and bears. Tools and weapons began to evolve, becoming sharper and more durable starting around 45,000 years ago. Cave paintings, jewelry, and sculptures that attest to an unprecedented level of culture and sophistication also begin to emerge as forms of creative expression. It seems as though the modern human brain was suddenly ignited by a spark. But the evidence suggests that this spark did not happen in the Neanderthals' brains. Although the Neanderthals' brain was larger than their ancestors, roughly the same size as the modern human brain, we can learn from Neanderthals that size doesn't always matter. Their thinking ability, at least in terms of tool making, wasn't very promising. Modern humans matched their tool making techniques in less than 50,000 years of existence, something that took the Neanderthals 250,000 years. Inevitably, modern human families advanced far beyond them. Their typical tool kit consisted of well over 125 items 35,000 years ago, including knives for cutting, whittling, stone saws, chisels, perforators for making holes, needles, scrapers for bone, others for skin, pounding slabs, etc. Many of these tools were attached to wood, bone, and antler handles, and all were made of these items including ivory. In fact, ivory can also be steamed and boiled. In contrast, the typical Neanderthal tool kit consisted of between 5 and 60 different items, such as horizontal stone scrapers and blunted and double-edged rock knives. Indeed, the Neanderthal and those who came before them simply knocked 2 stones together to sharpen a rock, or they chipped away flakes from rocks and used these as cutting tools and weapons. There was nothing primitive or Neanderthal about the early European modern humans. They were a tall and noble people, with broad shoulders, prominent chins, high rounded foreheads, and brains almost a third larger than those of the average woman and man today. In fact, early anthropologists believed that because early European modern humans were so far advanced physically, intellectually, technologically, culturally, and genetically in comparison to all those who had come before them and the Neanderthals, and because they appeared on Earth so suddenly, they may have been made in the likeness of the gods. Early anthropologists believed that the early European modern humans were so godlike, and the women so beautiful that the Son of God descended from the heavens to make love with these ladies and make these women his wives, while the Neanderthals were still living in cold, damp caves. The early European modern humans were 6 feet tall, with a massive brain and perfect body, and they strode about the European continent much like gods, according to some. Whereas Neanderthals apparently had a fondness for red, the early European modern humans learned to separate and mix these pigments, creating a variety of hues and colors. To mix and to arrive at the correct consistency, a variety of lubricants were employed such as blood, vegetable and fruit juices, and a variety of animal fats. In order to paint on cave walls, early European modern humans used both a brush and their fingers. In fact, they used a variety of brushes that allowed them to produce a wide range of shades and strokes. In some cases, the artist simply blew paint onto the drawing via a tubular bone, creating a mist-like spray. As many of their paintings and artworks were extremely abstract, surrealistic, or composed of geometric forms and concentric shapes and ovals that in some cases formed abstract versions of animals or women, the early European modern humans artists had also invented abstract impressionism. In fact, they displayed an artistic mastery equal to that of any modern master, including Picasso. The early European modern humans, and other Upper Paleolithic peoples' spiritual belief systems far surpassed those of their ancestors in terms of their complexity, originality, and artistic and symbolic achievements. Spiritual beliefs changed along with the development of the brain, of man, and of woman. As a result, the early European modern humans' understanding of, and capacity for symbolically expressing the spirit world also significantly increased, going through what has been called a symbolic explosion. The civilization of the early European modern humans then came to an abrupt end. There is evidence that the Earth experienced a global catastrophe 12,000 years ago, that resulted in the extinction of millions of animals, the flash freezing of mammoths with food in their mouths, incredible floods, and sea levels rising by up to 400 feet. In the end, early European modern human hunter-gatherers experienced a catastrophic end to their golden age. The fact that these intellectual and physical giants had indeed consumed fruit from the tree of knowledge is, however, obvious and apparent.